Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
All right, guys, today I'm going to be talking about one of the principles I learned to apply long before I ever read any leadership books or started studying personal growth and development, that sort of stuff. But today is part 22 of 30 in the Blue Collar Leadership Leading from the Front Lines series. And today I want to talk to you about asking for more responsibility. So don't stop the podcast yet. I know a lot of people, when they start hearing about anything to do with accepting or taking more responsibility, they want to go the other direction. You may have seen the cartoon. It's out on a lot of social media. It says basically a guy standing at a podium and he's asking who thinks we need to change and get better. Everybody raises their hand, right? And then he says, who wants to change so that we can be better? And like nobody's raising their hand. And that's why it's the same way with responsibility. We all know someone needs to take responsibility. We just don't want it to be us. So my wife, Rhea, she says, if we embrace the chance of living life to the fullest, then we must be willing to accept responsibility for doing it. So one thing I know about accepting responsibility is when you accept responsibility, you begin to get paid immediately. Not in money, but with experience. And then you decide for the rest of your career how to leverage that experience to your benefit, to your team's benefit, to the organization's benefit. But a lot of people think the only way to get paid is with money. But I promise you, if you have enough experience, you don't have a problem getting paid enough money. And so that was one thing I figured out early in my career, was to always be asking for responsibility. Now, I didn't worry about the raise. I get the raise later, and I always did, but I wasn't focused on the raise. I was focused on taking responsibility. Because what I know is when you accept more responsibility, you'll develop more influence. And again, that's what all of this leadership development is about, helping you understand how to intentionally grow and develop your influence. So the quickest way to build trust from the front lines with your boss is to get results. I always tell people, how many of you like being bossed? I don't tell them, I ask them, how many of you like being bossed by the boss? Nobody ever raises their hand. And I always say, if you don't want to have a boss, get results. That means do whatever the boss wants you to do. It ain't that hard. And this ain't about being a yes man or a yes woman. It's about getting results. They're the boss. They get to decide what results are. The more results you get, the more influence you're going to have. So if you want to change things, instead of just being loud about what needs to be changed, get results and leverage your influence to make change as a leader. The easiest way to ensure you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder is what I just said. Get results. The quickest way to increase your influence with the boss, guess what it is? Get results. One of the results you can get is to take responsibility. Bosses at all levels want a team of people who will accept and take responsibility. So I want you to think about this. Doing a good job is not a bad thing, right? But doing a great job is an exceptional thing. And that's what, when we talk about accepting responsibility, I remember when I was in the military, I did some time in the Marines, and it was just, I don't know if it's a joke or a common saying or whatever, but I've talked to a lot of other folks in the military, and it's pretty common. Is one of the first things you always hear is never volunteer. Really, whenever you hear somebody saying never volunteer, they're saying never ask for responsibility. They're saying dodge leading yourself well. So I say always volunteer, because you're going to gain influence. And I love when I'm talking. Just recently, Rhea and I talked to a junior Chamber of Commerce group. So there was basically 4 different students from 7 different high schools making up this county Chamber of Commerce, the junior chamber. And so they were getting to go around in the community one day a month. They spent a day going around visiting different types of businesses, hearing from different speakers and that sort of thing. And Rhea and I had the privilege of speaking to them. And just by them being in the room, they were already at 16, 17, 18 years old. They were already leveraging this principle, asking for more responsibility, because they volunteered to be a part of the junior chamber. And I guarantee you, those young folks, they're building influence in the community at a level far beyond a bunch of the older folks that live in that same community, because these young folks are out there making it happen. Yeah, they're getting all in the middle of everything going on. They're meeting people, and they're rising to the top, so to speak, just by being a part of that. They've separated themselves from the crowd. And instead of just doing a good job, maybe a lot of the students at school are doing a good job. And remember, that's not a bad thing. But joining that junior chamber for those high school students was a great job, doing a great job. And that'll help them become an exceptional person. One thing I always love to tell the young folks, high school, college folks, just folks on the front line who are working, I always like to tell them, don't ask for a raise, ask for more responsibility. And when I'm teaching to the young folks and we're in a session, I'll say, write this down. Don't ask for a raise. And they start writing it. And as soon as I say ask for more responsibility, they stop writing and look at me most of the time. And I'll say, go ahead and finish it up. Finish writing it when we'll talk about it. And I always ask people a simple question. Because, see, all this stuff is common sense, like I always talk about, but it's not common practice. It takes uncommon sense to apply these things that are commonly understood. I know I say it all the time, but it's the truth. And people will nod their head and say, oh, yeah, that makes sense, but they won't go do it. And let me explain how that works for you. It's the same thing I tell these young folks. I say, assume you're the boss. There are 2 people on your team. You can't tell the difference between these 2 people. You got enough money to give one of them a raise. You can't tell the difference between these 2 people on your team. They're identical, except for one thing. Both of them are rock stars too. They make stuff happen. They get stuff done. You can't, again, tell the difference, except for one thing. One of them is always asking for a raise. The other is always asking for responsibility. So you're the boss. Who do you give the raise to? The one always asking for more to do, or the one always asking for more money? Which one's more valuable? Which one would you rather work with? Again, it's common sense. Everybody always says the one asking for responsibility. And then I say, okay, what if there's a downturn in the economy? You're the boss. You have these 2 fabulous team players. The only difference, one of them always asks for a raise, one of them always asking for responsibility. There's a downturn in the economy. You've got to let one person go. Which one is it? Everybody always knows it's the one always asking for a raise. Let the one asking for a raise go. Keep the one who's always asking for responsibility. Everybody knows that. Common sense. But what does everybody do every day? Do they go in and look for more responsibility to take and ask to accept more responsibility? And that's one thing my friend Jimmy Collins, former president and chief operations officer at Chick-fil-A, he retired with almost 33 years of service. And that's one thing he always says is, don't accept responsibility, take it. Don't wait for somebody to give it to you, take it. Find what needs to be done and do it. And Jimmy says this specifically: responsibility and roles are not something that must be handed down. They are taken as one assumes more and more responsibility in the organization. As you take responsibility, you're going to be seen as more valuable. You're going to be given greater opportunities. Your influence is going to increase. So think about this. Average people aren't willing to do what exceptional people are willing to do. Says easy, does hard. So I want to challenge you today. Wherever you're working, whatever level you're at, what could you be doing that you're not doing? What responsibility could you take? And again, don't get tangled up if they're going to pay you to do it. Just do it. And then I promise you, at some point in your life, you're going to get paid for having done it. Many jobs I've taken and held up my hand and said, I'll do that job without being given a raise and without asking for a raise. But it didn't take long for me to get a raise. And sometimes I had to leave the company to get the raise. I've moved from one company to another and doubled my pay. So I eventually got paid for all the stuff I wasn't getting paid for at the previous company, right? You may or may not want to do that. You may want to move up in your current company. You may want to move from one department to another, or from one organization, one plant in one city to another plant in another city. There's no telling what you want to do, but I promise you this, experience has a value. And once you get that experience, nobody can take it away from you. How do you get it? You ask for more responsibility. Remember this, always focus on becoming more valuable and not more successful. Because when you become more valuable, you will become more successful. See, asking for a raise is about becoming successful. Asking for responsibility is about becoming more valuable. So I hope you have a great day. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.